Well, today's topic is something that I think is really important for us to consider and talk about, but it's often something that I think is basically a frustration for people and maybe not always resolved in an organization. And it's simply the reason that so many managers and leaders in an organization can struggle in leadership, even though they have the right title, the right position, they've worked their way up into the ranks of the organization, legitimately even, and yet they still find themselves feeling capped out or hitting a ceiling, hitting a wall, whatever analogy or metaphor you want to use. The reality is that untrained leaders or untrained employees end up getting promoted into leadership roles many times without being trained to become a better leader. So, for instance, a good friend of mine, he told me years ago, he said, Chris, I'm doing well in my job as far as what I'm doing, getting promoted, getting opportunities, and yet as I'm being elevated and promoted into this organization, which was a large corporation, he said, nobody's really training me how to be a good leader. And he was telling me about his struggles. He was telling me about how he had done poorly and how he was trying to figure some things out on his own. And I think that's really what happens in a lot of organizations is, and I don't think it's intentional necessarily. I think it's more of just out of the necessity of needing to promote people, move people into new roles. Somebody leaves or somebody else is promoted. So we move people around in the organization. And yet time seems to be the constraint for what do I do to train this person to really be a good leader. Rarely do I hear it's about money. When I talk to companies about doing leadership training and coaching, rarely do I hear it's a money issue. Many times it's a time capacity issue. But the problem is when we don't train people, when we don't help them succeed as leaders, it has a domino effect that affects the rest of the organization because those people who are now in leadership roles that are managing people, if they're not good leaders, if they've not had good models and they're not just by nature good leaders, the people under them suffer. And so today I just want to talk about that a little bit because the reality is it's unfair to think that everybody's just going to figure it out on their own. And so as I go about this series this month, highlighting the 5-year anniversary of the Magnetic Leader, I want to talk about the importance of developing and equipping people and why it has to be intentional because accidental effort just doesn't produce the kind of results that you really want in your organization. And so let's dig into that a little bit because here's the thing. The cost of replacing employees, the cost of training employees, new employees, the cost of turnover, it's very expensive. And most leaders understand that, they know that. But the problem is, as I stated earlier, it's rare for organizations to slow down and do leadership and development training at the front end of promoting someone or bringing someone in from the outside, even that may not have a lot of leadership experience. They may have skill experience. They may be really good at the skill. And that's where this tends to be the challenge for most organizations. Somebody's promoted based on their great skills. So, for instance, somebody's really good in sales, and so they become the sales manager. Well, now they're in charge of the sales team. They're now in charge of leading the sales people, but they really weren't trained to be great people managers and people leaders. They were trained to be great salespeople. And so you take somebody out of their strength zone. Many times it's a zone of genius because it's something they've done really well. And now you put them in to a level of incompetency without even thinking about it many times. Because somebody that's great at selling doesn't necessarily equate that or move that over, translate that over right into leading people that happen to be salespeople. So now managing teams, managing the tasks, the projects, managing the data, all the things that come with that role are not things that that person necessarily has been trained to do. And so I'm not throwing stones at anybody. I'm just saying this is a reality in a lot of organizations because out of necessity, we're filling gaps in leadership roles and putting good people into spots that we would love to see them thrive and excel in. But the reality is because they haven't been trained, they haven't been equipped, they haven't been developed as leaders, they can really struggle in those roles if we're not careful. And so maybe today's conversation will do nothing more than just kind of highlight to you the importance of really thinking this through For others, maybe this is a wake-up call and you're saying, you know what, we haven't even thought about this, but this is what's happening here. For others, it's, yeah, we've known this, we just haven't taken an intentional step and we need to. Um, but the reality is that if you're going to help your managers thrive, if you're going to help your team and your culture thrive across the organization, you really need to invest in your leaders. And so that's why I love to do what I get to do as a coach and a trainer, coming alongside leaders to help them develop their people. So many times, what I find is that people that are at the ownership level or C-suite level, they often get to go to a lot of conferences and trainings, and maybe they've had mentors and coaches along the way to get to that level of the organization. What happens is people that are lower in the organization on the org chart, more middle management and even to the front line, oftentimes they don't get the same opportunities based on the role and just the requirements that the company has put together as far as policies to send people to training. So, bringing somebody like myself in, other coaches, other trainers as well, with different specializations can really be valuable to enhance the leadership development of your people. So, what I do see as well is that companies are really focused on training in the tactical aspects of a job. So, if you bring somebody in, whether it's from the outside or you're promoting somebody from the inside to a new role, and you need to train them on systems and processes and procedures and all those things internally, I think that often gets done pretty well for the most part that I've seen. It's the leadership people development side of leading individuals that gets lost. And so I just want to highlight this to you because this could be a pain point that's holding you back. This could be something that's basically a ceiling on your organization's growth and impact. It could be a ceiling on your impact as an individual leader because below you, you have people that really aren't trained and equipped and empowered and capable to be the leaders that you need. So all of a sudden, you're having to make a lot more decisions than you really should be having to make. You're having to be involved in things you shouldn't have to be involved in because the people below you in the organization aren't really ready, trained, equipped, or even empowered and trusted to make decisions that shouldn't even have to come to your desk. So when we invest in our people, what happens is it isn't just about, hey, they're good with their team, which is important. It's also what can they do to lighten your load as a leader? When people are equipped to be leaders, when they're trained to be leaders, when they're coached to be leaders, and they have a leadership mindset and perspective, and they understand the aspects of leadership that they need to really own and grow in and do, then they can start making decisions down the line that never even have to reach your desk. If something keeps flowing up to you that somebody down beneath you in the organization could or should be making a decision on or doing, that let that be a warning sign to you that maybe that person needs to be invested in or that team needs to be invested in. So this isn't a sales pitch for me. That's not what my intent is in this. My intent here is to help you understand that if you're feeling capped, if you're feeling like we just can't get over this certain hump, this certain level in our organization's history, growth, whatever it may be, our impact in the marketplace, it could be, and many times is a leadership issue because the more leaders you develop in the organization that are making solid quality decisions on behalf of the organization, the more impactful, the more growth can happen. So the question then becomes, what are you going to do about that? Right? Are you going to stay stuck and stagnant and frustrated, or are you going to say, you know what, we need to bite the bullet. We need to make sure that we do the investment in our people. The companies that invest in their people to develop them, they a couple of things happen. One is you see who really is a rising star, so to speak, that really is attracted to developing and growing. And you might see certain people in a new light and say, you know what, they really have a lot of leadership potential for our organization long term. Some people through the process are kind of weeded out, and maybe you see them as, you know what, they're okay and they're doing their job, but they're not going to quite be the kind of leader we want in our organization. So you have to make a decision at that point. Are you okay to keep them in a certain space and let them do what they do? Or do you need to replace them with somebody that can be the leader you need in that specific slot? So leadership development kind of exposes both the good and the challenges of the team. And that should be something that's worthwhile as well. You know, Jim Collins in his book Good to Great that he wrote years and years ago now, he talked about, making sure you have the right people on the bus and that those right people are in the right seats in their roles. And when you develop leaders, when you're coaching and training your leaders, you're basically deciding and figuring out where are the right seats for these people. And do we have any people on the bus that need to be off the bus? Do we need to bring on some people onto the bus that we don't currently have so that we can drive down the road more effectively into the future? So this is something that, when I talk about equipping and developing people and even caring about people in my book, The Magnetic Leader, it really comes down to investment. It really comes down to, am I going to put in the time, the energy, the resources, even the mindset, right? Installing a mindset in the organization, kind of a leadership operating system of sorts, that we're going to be a developing organization that helps people grow as leaders so that they can accomplish more and they can take on more responsibility and lighten the load of the senior leadership level, make better decisions downstream so that the organization thrives and the team under them and around them thrives as well. So what are you wanting to do with this becomes the question. What are you going to do if this is your situation? If you say, you know what, Chris, you're right. We have people that maybe they're in the wrong seats, or maybe we haven't invested in them enough, but we need to figure this out. I do want to encourage you, go to McClureCoaching.com, set up a free strategy call with me. I'd love to just sit down and talk with you face to face about kind of what are your current challenges, what are your goals, what are the things you've done, what are the things you haven't done, and we can talk about putting together a strategy of developing your people and whether we work together directly on that strategy or whether you choose to do it on your own. That's completely up to you. The call is free. So just go to McClureCoaching.com and request a free strategy call because I'd love to just at least be a sounding board for you to help you think about kind of where you are, where you want to go, what's it going to take to get there with the people you have, and is it you need to develop your people, or is it we need some new people with different capacity or different skills to be brought onto the team? See, don't let your managers just suffer in silence. Don't let your people suffer under managers who don't know how to lead people because they've never been trained. Instead, take action. Decide to invest in them, decide to make it a priority that you're not just going to promote people into roles because they've been good at a certain task, but that you really understand that it's, when you promote somebody into that management role, it's about the people, not just about the task now. So I encourage you, schedule that free call with me. I'd love to chat with you about that. You can grab a copy of my book, The Magnetic Leader, at my website as well. You can learn more about that on my website. It's on Amazon as well if you want to check it out there. But the point here is don't let people suffer. Don't let your organization suffer or be held back because people really haven't been trained and equipped to do what you need out of them as key roles in your organization. Instead, choose to make a plan to invest in them and see where that can take you. Because once again, through the training, you start to see those that rise to the top and those that might need repositioned or out, placed out, out of the organization and maybe it's the best thing for them is to go to a different situation because that's a better fit for them and it opens up a spot for a better fit for you. So take care and we will see you next time.